Alright, I'm Josh.
And I'm Sam. Welcome back to Star Wars Deep Digging.
Alright, let's just get right back into it because we left off right in the middle. Discussing the relative threat levels facing our respective commands. Commander Tag was, in my opinion, distressingly myopic on the subject of the Rebel Alliance. Myopic, fancy word. Although I commend him for his concern of the well-being of his own troops, the threat posed by a patchwork fleet of second-hand X and Y-wing starfighters, led by a complement of informally trained pilots, is, in my opinion, minimal. Okay, I get the Y-wings being second-hand, but weren't the X-wings just invented at this point? That is not to say there is not a time or a place for discussing the rebel threats. No one ever won a war through overconfidence. Merely that Tag's concerns are not universal. The dog nipping at his heels in the streets is no threat to my locked and guarded house, so to speak. At this point, we were joined by Grand Moff Tarkin and Lord Vader, who informed us that the Imperial Senate had been formally and permanently dissolved by the Emperor. May I take this opportunity to say I think this action was a long time in coming?
Bad news, the Imperial Senate has been dissolved. The good news is, regional warlords now have a say in everything.
Well, okay, they're not calling themselves warlords yet. They're still governors.
Governors, that's what I meant. Governors.
Right. It was a long time in coming and can only benefit us as an organization moving forward. Tag, who only moments before had feared that rebel support within the Senate would destroy us, now faced the opposites. Namely, that without the apparatus of the state bureaucracy, the Emperor would be unable to maintain order. I would like to say personally that I do not believe the Emperor requires any assistance, and that Tag's repeated questioning of the Emperor's actions, if not outright treasonous, at the very least speaks a lack of fitness for command. Probably why Tag ends up getting killed by Vader later. Perhaps once the High Command has finished investigating Lord Vader's outburst, it will turn its attention to Tag's competence, loyalty, and overall value to our organization. Well, at the very least, Palpatine found Tag a more valuable commander than Vader, temporarily, though maybe that says more about how mad he was at Vader for the Death Star's destructions than how much he liked Tag.
That may have given Vader a reason to kill Tag. Basically, the Emperor likes you, I don't. I'm going to kill you now, and gain the Emperor's favor. Palpatine's all like, good, Vader. You killed that guy, good. Now, stew in that anger and hatred and revel in the power of the dark side.
You know, the irony is that in the radio drama, Mahdi's the one who tries to convince Tarkin to steal the Death Star and launch their own coup against the Emperor in order to take the Empire for themselves. Tarkin ultimately decides not to go through with it because, Vader's still on the ship and, well, not like there's anything they can do about that.
Oh yeah, two things. One, I think Palpatine is intentionally giving Darth Vader rivals to deal with because Palpatine wants Vader to feel only anger and hatred. Also, there are 3 Death Stars in both canon and legends. The difference between the two is what the 3rd Death Star is.
Yep. Well, okay, there are also a whole bunch of Death Star knockoffs and legends, but, if we were to give a full list of super weapons, Imperial and otherwise, we'd be here all day. Man, start taking a shot every time I say that. It was then that I dismissed Tag and Vader's line of argument, namely that the rebellion, if in possession of the Death Star blueprints, might pose an immediate threat to our safety, by pointing out that merely obtaining tactical data was not the same thing as an imminent assault. There are blueprints of every single Star Destroyer, Governor's Mansion, Imperial Palace, and Naval Shipyard in the Empire, and most of them have backups kept in various data storage facilities throughout the galaxy. Does Tag mean to suggest that the mere existence of the artifacts necessary to the architectural process poses an existential threat? We have, I might add, an entire military intelligence unit whose sole job it is to evaluate the credibility of possible threats. I then encourage the other admirals that, having invested so much time and energy into building the Death Star, it might perhaps behoove us to use it. I need hardly to say to you, gentlemen, that this was merely restating the official Tarkin doctrine. It is scarcely in dispute. Fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station.
Darth Jadis approves.
Well, okay, I don't think he'd be quite as fond of the Tarkin's doctrine. Jadis believes more in fear for its own sake than fear as a tool.
Darth Jadis approves of the word fear.
Yep. If the rebels launch an attack, we will defend ourselves. In the meantime, I believe we should continue to employ every method at our disposal to ending the war. The rest you know. Lord Vader for some reason took issue with my idea that we use the weapon we had only recently finished building, suggested that we take less pride in our military achievements.
Why not give more power to the ISB?
Sam, if you got something you need to say, you gotta use the clicker before, you say things. Otherwise I won't know when you want to talk.
Oh, right. I was actually thinking about why not give more power to the ISB.
Probably because Palpatine doesn't trust them.
Well, they actually don't trust anyone.
Which is fair. It's the Empire. As an organization, and once again loudly evangelized to specific religious beliefs. Ooh, evangelize, another fancy word. I may have been heated in my response, but I merely spoke the truth. Oh, if he thinks that's heated, you should see my dad. Zing. Lord Vader's devotion to a nearly extinct faith has not resulted in the recovery of the stolen data tapes, nor has it given him insight into the rebels' secret base, nor has he ever destroyed a planet. His response was showy and attention-grabbing, certainly, but he could not refute a single one of my arguments. He found my lack of faith disturbing?
Oh, yeah. Also... Oh, right. Also, I thought of this. Here's another example of heated. This heated argument. I say The Last Jedi sucked more. I say The Rise of Skywalker sucked more.
Hot take. The holiday special is worse than both of them combined. And from a purely objective standpoint, people just like it because it can be enjoyed ironically in a way that a lot of Disney Star Wars stuff can, like The Acolyte. But anyways... I have never claimed to be an adherent to his sect. I found his lack of faith in this military installation disturbing. I do not attend Lord Vader's religious ceremonies and demand he venerate the Death Star's architectural staff. Okay, the mental image of Vader carrying out religious ceremonies it's a pretty good one. I ask him to refrain from interrupting my meetings and insisting I kowtow before this force of his. Man, kowtow, we're gonna need to look up a thesaurus. I also, as I stated before, object to his choking me. I concede nothing. I maintain, as I always have, that if we were going to build the Death Star, we might as well use it. It should please the members of High Command to note that I am at the present moment able to confirm that this battle station is in fact fully operational, and has thus far exceeded every hope we have ever placed in its construction. I have no doubt the Emperor will be gratified to hear this. I myself initiated the firing sequence upon Grand Moff Tarkin's command. Lord Vader himself can confirm this, if you care to ask him.
I just thought of this. I initiate kneeling prayers whenever Baylan Skoll says something because Baylan Skoll exists.
Oh yeah, I think that's basically what kowtowing is. I have no doubt the Emperor will be gratified to hear this. Oh wait, Lord Vader himself can confirm this if you care to ask him. I might add that the planet Alderaan was selected, targeted, and destroyed all without the aid of Lord Vader's precious force, thanks entirely to the competence, diligence, and efficiency of the Death Star operations team. I have no further comments on the matter. Change of Heart by Elizabeth Wayne. The hardest part of the work was keeping your feelings under control. I think this is one of the few short stories where, because it's told in second person, we don't actually know the character's name. Like, I'm sure if I check the old card game, there's a name for this guy. I mean, he's a Navy trooper. They don't show up often.
Oh. A Navy trooper.
Yeah, which is odd, because they got an interesting design.
Just just like that one Navy trooper that was fighting a stormtrooper when the rebels hit the Death Star. That's from a Star Wars comic.
Alright, I haven't read that one, so I didn't get the reference, so take another shot. You couldn't afford to show discomfort, and even if the light was too bright. You were trained to mask your physical response to pain, to fear, to surprise, to anything. Not just in your face, but in your entire body. You took pride in it too. On guard, you had to be as smooth-faced and immobile as a droid, and Lord Vader would always know if you faltered, if you twitched a finger or even an eyebrow, even if he wasn't looking at you. It was easier being in the faceless armored ranks of the stormtroopers, where no one could see your twitching eyebrow beneath the hard white mask. God, I love this armor. Being here at Vader's side, flanking him, a meter ahead of him or a meter behind in pace with a partner whose name you didn't know and with whom you never exchanged a spoken word, was an honor and a privilege. Your face was uncovered, your mask was invisible. You were in the inner circle. Everyone knew you were ambitious, U1B or otherwise. You could never show it.
I could tell you the story of the power behind a blue skeleton mask, but that's another story for another time.
You couldn't show anything. You saw things. You learned things. You knew things that no one but Lord Vader himself knew. This was why you joined. This was what you'd come for, what you thirsted for. To be here on the cutting edge of military technology. To be among the first, watch.
Yeah, you wouldn't learn everything Vader taught you, because if you did, Vader would have to kill you. In fact, Vader said to Imperial Lieutenant Tom, "Here's one final lesson for you, Lieutenant. Never suffer rivals."
I'm fairly certain that... Nope, just take another shot for that. I can't recall the specific comic, so... Yep, drinking game continues.
Oh, I do. It was Darth Vader in the Ghost Prison.
Yeah. I only read that one once. You walked ahead of Vader on his right as he strode through the sterile corridors of the detention block. You and your silent counterpart had to set the pace for him while keeping in perfect step with each other. A challenging and often daunting game of skill. On this occasion, though, after Vader had keyed in the codes to open the door to the unlucky prisoner he was about to interrogate, he stepped into the cell ahead of you. There was no invitation to follow, but of course you did it automatically. This was exactly the kind of moment you hated. No matter how hard you trained for it, you never stopped hating being taken by surprise. The prisoner was a young girl, and that came as a shock. I mean, she's 19, technically not that young. You know Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan was a member of the Galactic Senate. I mean, maybe I'm biased in my definition of young, because I'm only 22. But you hadn't realized she would be so young, and never in a million years had it occurred to you to expect such winning beauty. Small boned, neat, round face, still wearing the formal white gown of a diplomat, and with her long dark hair still smoothly rolled around her head in formal elegance, she sat straight and defiant against the smooth cold wall of her cell. Why do all these people have to gush over Leia's attractiveness? Why can't we get someone who's really into Han or Luke? Or even Chewie? That would shake things up a bit.
I actually thought of someone who was into Han, but basically a fan-made character.
Ooh, which one?
Well, it was actually a former Jedi from Luke's new academy who had a love-hate relationship with Han because she hated Han because Han looked so handsome and beautiful to her. She hated Han because she loved him.
Oh, did you come up with that one yourself?
Yeah.
But this work had made you good at reading faces, and it took only a glance for you to see that she was terrified. She was controlling it, but not well. Her dark eyes were wide and frightened, and she was cringing backward into the corner of the cell, bracing herself as Vader approached. All this hit you in the second it took to enter the small room. Lord Vader loomed tall and menacing over the cowering girl, but you kept your face still. You were better at it than she was. Don't look at her, you reminded yourself. Don't catch her eye. The single unit that you made with your counterpart was split as you stepped aside, one of you on each side of the door so that the menacing black globe of the interrogator droid could drift in. You didn't blink as it moved less than an arm's length from your head, the mind probe hypodermic poised dangerously close to your own eye. It wasn't here for you. The girl's dark eyes widened when she saw it. She gave a little gasp of apprehension. Vader said to her, "And now, Your Highness, we will discuss the location of your hidden rebel base." And the cell door glided smoothly shut behind you, sealing all four of you in together. The crowded cell was never designed to hold so many. You stood rigid and passive and thought of the command you'd someday have. You had to watch. There was no choice but to watch. But you weren't going to let yourself think of anything else but your own bright future. You know, it still raises the question. If all four of them were in there, who's the guard in the movie that walks away, leaving the other one with Vader?
I don't know. I don't know. They didn't really give it. They haven't really explained that to us.
Well, I'm sure they have guards in the card game too somewhere. Going to let you think of anything else but your own bright future. It didn't work. You were undone with shock at how much of yourself you recognized in this fragile, fearful, defiant young rebel with a backbone of steel. You could see as surely as Vader himself could that the girl knew more than she was revealing. She resisted and battled against the intrusion into her mind, but showed none of the confusion or outrage you'd expect from someone who had nothing to hide. She knew why she was here, and just like you, she was focused on endurance, on holding herself in. Her entire being was centered on not letting Darth Vader see what was going on in her head. She was exactly like you. When the heavy door slid open and the exhausting session had come to its temporary close, the girl was left on her own again, wrung out in a quivering heap of emotional and physical collapse. But unlike her, you weren't allowed the luxury of either emotion or collapse. She'd still given up nothing when Governor Tarkin sent for her. Her hands were manacled as you marched her through the Death Star's labyrinthine corridors.
I just thought of something. Basically, an Imperial officer goes up to a Navy trooper and says, are you a... basically, I've received reports from my superior that he's looking for Mr. Boog-E Fiva. Are you Mr. Boog-E Fiva? No, I don't think there's anyone here named that. Then the officer realized, oh no, not again! Why? Why me?
Yeah, poor guy. Her hands were manacled as you marched her through the Death Star's labyrinthine corridors. She was composed again, though. It wasn't obvious that she was scurrying to keep up. The pace Vader set was hard for a small frame to match. She still looked the part of a young ambassador on a diplomatic mission, and she was still playing that role with steely composure, just as you were playing your own role. You felt it as a shock in the pit of your stomach when you realized that she was matching your stride. You were shorter than your counterpart by a couple of fingers, and she was measuring her steps against yours to help her maintain her dignity. You stared straight ahead, expressionless as always. You were not helping her. You felt your composure slipping even though your expression didn't change. Vader weren't so focused on the prisoner, would he look at you and guess? He's got bigger things to worry about. Let that be a lesson to everyone with anxiety. People have bigger things to worry about than whatever you happen to be doing wrong. Focus, you told yourself fiercely. Focus. You forced your hard souls to strike the shining decking of the corridor in perfect time with those of your counterparts. You pretended you couldn't hear the pattering footfalls of the girl's soft white boots exactly marching your own steps. Governor Tarkin was waiting in the overbridge with Admiral Motti. Beyond the plating of the broad curved viewport was a black canvas of starlight in the blue glow of the planet Alderaan, focusing serenely against its backdrop. You and your counterpart fell back to take your expected positions in deference to the commander's presence, and Vader halted, but the undaunted girl swept forward majestically to take on Tarkin herself. She was formal and snide. She told him he stank. Vader stepped behind her, looming over her with all the menace of his full height. The top of her head came only to his breastplate. It would one heavy gloved hand in warning against her back, reminding her that she was still his prisoner, as if it were possible for her to forget here in the control room of the Death Star, surrounded by enemies and guards, with her hands bound. From where you stood behind the girl and Vader, you couldn't see her face. but you could see Tarkin's wry grin as he took her chin in his hand and told her he had signed the order for her execution. Again, for a moment, your stomach plummeted in cold shock. But you didn't swallow. You didn't even blink. She didn't flinch either. She answered Tarkin, still icily formal. I'm surprised you had the courage to take the responsibility yourself. Tarkin didn't rise to her highbrow baiting. Instead, he stepped away from her. Coolly invited her to watch the first ceremonial demonstration of the Death Star's capabilities. No star system will dare oppose the Emperor now, he taunted her. You were now so invested in her defiance that you'd forgotten you weren't supposed to be listening. Your feigned indifference was trained. It came automatically. But the girl had no such training. She didn't even realize how Tarkin was playing her. She was unaware he'd taken over her interrogation, and already he was succeeding at stripping information out of her that neither Lord Vader nor the interrogator droid had been able to. Tarkin was forcing her into declaring her loyalty. I mean, I'm fairly certain they were certain of that already, but I guess for legal reasons they needed to get confirmation. She was so angry and defiant and scared that she didn't even realize she was doing it. Her speech was tight and clipped as she gave herself away, her voice full of pride and hatred. The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. He was sure of her now. She had as much admitted her loyalty to the rebellion. He turned away from her and stared out at the blue glowing orb of the planet in the near distance. He said, I have chosen to test this station's destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan. And she broke. You did not, but she did. No! She looked forward, entreating him, no longer taking care with how she shaped her words. Alderaan is peaceful. We have no weapons. He turned around abruptly. She was still crying out in protest. You can't possibly... He cut her short, speaking over her exclamation. You will provide another target, a military target, then name the system. This was, in its way, more painful to witness than the physical torment the young princess had borne with such fierce determination, as Vader had probed her mind beneath the hungry needles of the interrogator droid. Tarkin had unmasked her. The steel was gone. She was frightened and desperate, but still she hesitated, still unwilling to answer his question. And now Tarkin, too, was on the edge of coming unmasked. There was cold anger in his voice as he confronted her. I grow tired of asking this, the girl recoiled from his fury and backed straight into Lord Vader. So it'll be the last time. She flinched at last. She bent her head away from Tarkin's, then forced herself to look directly at him again as he demanded, Where is the rebel base? Her small body was trapped between Governor Tarkin and Lord Vader. All he could see was the back of her elegant, shining head. Seriously? Now her hair, too? But you could tell she wasn't looking at Tarkin now. She was staring over her shoulder at the beautiful blue planet floating beyond the wide viewing panel. The planet that was her home. There was a strange, quiet moment in which time seemed to stand still. A pause in which the young girl thought hard and fast about who she was going to betray. Dantooine, she said in defeat.
Okay. In Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, you can actually flip the script when Admiral Saul Kareth interrogates you, asking for the Jedi Academy. You could say Jedi Academy is on Alderaan when it's really on Dantooine.
But Alderaan is a planet of poets and philosophers. Nothing interesting ever happened there. Although it was a plausible suggestion, because House Organa has always been close allies of the Jedi.
Yeah.
They always will be. She said in defeat, still staring over Tarkin's shoulder. You saw Tarkin's grim, triumphant smile. After another moment, the girl looked up at him, and then almost immediately, as if she could...
Also, I just thought of this. The last rebel spy we captured said that the rebel base was in the Maw Cluster. We have sent a strike team there, but have heard no response. Oh wait, here's one of our surviving members of the strike team. So, is there a rebel base in the Maw Cluster? Darkness. All darkness. So dark. Darkness. Darkness grabbing for me.
Wait a minute. At this point in the timeline, Abeloth's still trapped.
Oh. I thought she was trapped in the Maw Cluster.
Well, yeah, isn't that the darkness you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Yeah, the darkness trapped in the Maw Cluster.
And she showed no signs of being even close to breaking out before then, right?
No.
So they'd be pretty alright, right? I mean, the Empire had a base in the Maw Cluster for decades, and there was no hint of anything going wrong.
I'm speechless.
Oh, by the way, I just remembered now, this guy, the protagonist, the old card game refers to him as Corporal Grenwick. Grenwick, interesting name. You saw Tarkin's grim, triumphant smile. After another moment, the girl looked up at him, and then almost immediately, as if she couldn't bear the victory in her eyes, she lowered her head. You still couldn't see her face, and now neither could Tarkin. She replied unsteadily, "They're on Dantooine." She was lying through her teeth. Governor Tarkin spoke to Lord Vader over the smooth crown of the princess's lowered head. There. Tarkin stepped away from his menacing position in front of the bound and cowering girl, and for just a split second he came toward you, standing motionless behind Lord Vader. In that fraction of a second you thought that he knew it too, that he'd seen her lie, and that he was looking to you for confirmation. But he wasn't seeing you as anything other than the silent fixture that you always were in his presence. In another fraction of a second he'd stepped away and added, "You see, Lord Vader, she can be reasonable." You stood unbroken, not moving, not blinking, but your entire inner being was quivering in disbelief. He didn't see it. She was lying through her teeth, and our interrogator didn't see it. Vader didn't see it. Wouldn't it be so funny if Vader did see it, but didn't say anything just to screw up Tarkin?
Yeah.
This is what you get for what happened to Ahsoka. No one saw it but you. The training held you still. The training controlled your body, but your mind raced with turmoil.
Actually, I think Vader kind of did get his revenge for Ahsoka out of his system after he killed Fox. Well, basically, Vader was thinking, this is for Ahsoka and Fives, Fox. Then kills Fox.
Yeah. He must have enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Should you say something? Is it a trick to test your own loyalty? Has someone seen through your soaring ambition, guessed at the hierarchy you like to penetrate, the command post you thirst for?
Oh, I forgot to mention. Actually, now I think about it, Vader did tolerate Fox for what happened to Ahsoka and Fives, thinking, I'll get revenge sooner or later. Then when Fox ordered his troops to fire on Vader, thinking he was probably a surviving Jedi, Vader's like, alright, that's it, you're dead.
Has someone seen through your soaring ambition, guessed at the hierarchy you'd like to penetrate, the command post you thirst for? Or what will you gain by speaking out against her? Will it show keen perception, your ability to know a prisoner's thoughts, your own untapped potential as an interrogator? No. Through the storm of uncertainty, you knew you were no latent interrogator. You didn't have Tarkin's skill or Vader's power. You weren't reading the girl's mind, it was simpler than that. You knew she was lying, because it was exactly what you would do. Continue with the operation. Tarkin gave the order offhandedly to Admiral Mahdi. You may fire when ready. What? The princess cried out. There was a scuffle. I'd hardly call that a scuffle. She moved slightly and Vader dragged her back. Tarkin, reverting to his dry, informal self, told her, "You're far too trusting." The princess leapt forward as if she could somehow stop him or attack him, bound as she was, but Lord Vader seized her by the shoulder and pulled her back against the hard casing of his hulking breastplate. He held her helpless there and forced her to watch. Man, can you imagine if Leia's force powers unlocked here? Imagine her frying Tarkin with lightning. I know it would never happen, but it would be so much. Oh, it would be so criffing funny.
Well, back then, that happened, Vader would have two choices. Either bring her to the Emperor, have Palpatine turn to the dark side, or kill her right then and there because she could be too dangerous to the Empire.
So in the long run, better that didn't happen. Older bit, he held her helpless there and forced her to watch. No one forced you, but you and your silent counterpart stood facing the view of the doomed blue world. Just as in the prison cell earlier, you had no choice but to watch. You're far too trusting. She wasn't trusting, you realized. She might be broken and she might be under threat of execution, but she still hadn't given anything away. even to save her world. The destruction of Alderaan was blinding. Oh yeah, they probably had to tint the windows or something to make sure people didn't literally go blind. There was no noise in the control room in the Death Star. All the company watched, hushed as the terrible brightness flared around them. You could have betrayed her now. Whenever they inevitably sent their scouts and probes to Dantooine, you knew for certain they would find nothing there. You could have spared them the effort, the expense, the wasted power. You could have been rewarded for it. I mean, probably not. Empire is kinda stingy with its rewards. But doubt bloomed in your heart and you hesitated. You're far too trusted. There is no reason Governor Turkin would ever reward you. Why do I never read ahead? It's just... I say things and the book immediately clarifies these things. And I feel like I'm just pointing out the obvious retroactively. Why not betray her? Why not betray her, though? Why not call out her falseness just because you were a loyal Imperial Guard? The brightness burned your eyes. You dared not blink. You stood still and said nothing, momentarily blinded. You would not betray her. Your spirit was shaken, and your loyalty changed. Your silence made you her ally. You are now as doomed as she was. You would never betray her. You had joined her rebellion. And just like Davin Felf, we never find out what happens to this guy. Probably died when the Death Star blew up. When in doubt, just assume that they all did. Eclipse by Madeline Rue. Brea Organa watched the slanted sunbeam behind Visayas' shoulder. Brea. Phantom was really fond of her for some reason. The light in the gallery... she had a few seconds of screen time in her engine safe. The light in the gallery... No. I'm not gonna give an info dump about Brea just now. Like, if we get to Leia, Princess of Alderaan, or one of the related books, then that would be the time. The light in the gallery above the palace's grand entrance hall grew gold and then orange, signaling the end of the afternoon. Another day without her husband and daughter was coming to a close, but it had passed as slowly as a lifetime. Visayas spoke just as slowly, methodically reminding the Queen of her schedule for the remainder of the day. With each word, each then, followed by another chore, another meeting, another duty, Brea became wearier and wearier. A tight wrinkle formed between her eyes as she watched that one solitary sunbeam. It had sneaked in through one of the high windows above them, a single splash of gold amid the silvery blue splendor of the palace. Even when she was a child, the hall had reminded her of the inside of a seashell. Smooth and lustrous, always slightly cool, even at the height of summer. Then, you are expected to found a school for underprivileged nerds who just want to follow their dreams and become dancers. Brea snapped her gaze away from the sunbeam, looking in stunned amusement at the middle-aged one beside her. As an advisor, Visaya was so important to her that Brea often joked that losing her would be like cutting off a hand. She had even had matching rings framed for them, simple little bands that each wore on their right index fingers. Perhaps I am a bit distracted, Brea admitted, passing a sealing hand to her face. Okay, for anyone who doesn't get the jokes, nerfs are like cow, sheep, ox things. That's the joke. Cancel my appointments for the rest of the day, please. My mind is simply elsewhere.
Actually, there was this one comic where Han and Luke had to tow nerfs halfway across the galaxy.
Yeah, they smelled bad. Visaya nodded, consulting her datapad with renewed determination. Of course, easily done. Then she paused, and Brea might have lost interest again and let her mind wander, but something in the woman's face made her watchful. Visaya never demonstrated concern, always maintaining a mask of relaxed confidence. But now the dark brows were drawn in, furrowed, her foot tapping under her gown, rippling the silk. There is still no word, Brea told her, reaching out to touch the woman's wrist. It was an overly familiar gesture, perhaps, but these were unusual times. Captain Alderaan has asked me to stop raising him in the spaceport. He swears I will be the first to know when his shuttle lands. Besides, I did not look at all relieved. I could go and keep watch. I don't mind. Brea smiled gently. Captain Alderaan insisted. He is not to be bothered again today. By the way, all of these characters are new except for Bale and one other we'll get to later. Oh, but he only requested that you stop asking for him. I was issued no such warning. And this was why Visaya was her right hand. Brea was not above admitting to herself that without help she would not have weathered the recent storm. The dissolution of the Senate had come in such a blow, turning every incoming piece of news into possible calamity.
The Empire was far beyond subtle politicking now. They were desperate to crush the rebellion. Desperate animals were always the most dangerous. Now, it's weird that they're desperate because they kind of have the upper hand at this point. Brea pressed her lips together briefly and then nodded once. Be discreet, and thank you. Now I think I will be retired. I won't try her. I never knew I could be this exhausted. Besides, I made her curtsy and bustled away, silk skirts trailing in her wake like a silver shadow. Unburdened but still preoccupied, Brea turned and made her way down the gallery. Normally, nothing short of a plant-wide catastrophe could make her neglect her queenly duties. But she felt tired down to her bones. And normally she would welcome a hectic day to keep her mind off her husband's and daughter's absences. But day after worrying day ground her down. She had never felt old until recently, never felt it difficult to get out of bed refreshed and energetic. Now she felt her advancing years keenly. Oh, come on, Brea, you're only like what, 50? Like 60 max. You know what, I'm gonna check that later. Your Majesty, a minute of your time if you could. Her daughter's attendant droid, WA2V. Now here's a Leia Princess of Alderaan thing. Approached from seemingly out of nowhere, the overhead lights glinting up and off her bluish chassis as she darted out from behind a plant, lands in the corridor leading toward the royal apartments. By the way, I've checked the official artwork. WA is not blue, she's gray. Like most droids. Just maybe a little silverish, just saying. The droid rolled along quickly behind Brea, just a hand's breadth from the train of her gown. It's just, the droid hurried on, gears whirring as she struggled to keep up. Well, the gala for the Equinox. Equinox. I think this is the only time in the entire Star Wars franchise someone has used that term. Is in just 3 weeks, and the Draper really must know if the princess can attend, and if so, she might prefer silk or satin. Later to the, Brea said softly, ambushed, and here she had hoped to arrive at her chambers alone. Granted, at last, a moment's peace.
I remember a political talk at Alderaan that went wrong. It was the false signing of the Treaty of Coruscant.
Well, okay. Most political talks on Alderaan go wrong. Remember when Aurra Singh nearly killed Padme? That was quite the event.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. But the Treaty of Coruscant was much more, galaxy-wide.
Oh, definitely. My appointments are being rescheduled. I'm not to be disturbed. Majesty, and now the Minister of Finance rushing to catch up with them. Beast, it was not to be. Fast on the minister's heels came another shiny chrome head, her daughter's old tutor droid, CZ-70B. Pretty sure he's new. Clickety-clacking after them on metal feet. That droid was the only one of them that actually had an appointment, and was probably far too late to cancel that one. Brea did not slow her pace, shrugging off the minister's questions as rapidly as they came. Soon they approached the tall, arched doors leading to the royal apartments and the 2 armored sentinels that stood on either side. Armor? Like, I don't remember what Alderaan armor looks like. Through the slits in one enameled helmets, she found the sentinel's eyes and gave the slightest shake of her head. But, Your Majesty, the gown! Tuvi sounded ready to pop a servo with frustration. Step aside, droid. There's hardly a credit in the budget to spare on such ridiculous. The doors to the royal apartments opened, and with them came a rush of clean linen scented air. The sweet sound of her youngest attendant practicing at her lute, and the even more welcoming clank as the halberds of her guards went on behind her, barring entry. Couldn't you just duck under the halberds? Brea stepped just inside the apartments and turned and opened her hands to them as if in surrender. Minister Lynn traced, and Tuvi stopped short, the tutor droid bumping softly into the girl's back with a muted apology. Finances, galas, silks, budgets. Oh, the minister is a woman. Interesting. I need to re-examine my personal biases. Would Leia return in time for the equinox? It seemed unlikely, and yet in a small private corner of her heart that had nothing to do with rebellions or politics, Brea hoped it would be so. Would it mean her success or her failure if she returned that soon? What outcome did she dare wish for? She winced and closed her eyes tightly. It was a mother's duty to worry, but a queen's responsibility to endure. That is enough for today, Brea told them in her firmest voice. She hated the feeling that she was being chased, and hated even more the sense that this was somehow a retreat. Resources for the gala were allocated months ago, Lynn traced, which I'm certain you already know. 2A, the draper can pull one of my gowns from storage. RH. The princess may not attend the gala at all, and it would be a waste to begin a new government from scratch. The droid hummed with satisfaction, even giving a little turn on her rolling lower half as if she could not contain her excitement. Could he at least add a few embellishments here and there? A crystal or two, perhaps embroidery along the hem? Walking backward into our apartments, Bria closed her eyes again and suppressed a grin. Why, yes, Julie, that's an excellent idea. I'm certain Leia will be pleased. When traced, my consent was not an excitable or easily satisfied attendant. He grimaced. Okay. Minister is a woman. I'm not sure who the young girl. Minister is a man. I need to pay more attention and also get more sleep. I've got a headache right now and my brain is not braining. He grimaced and turned with a flounce, his cape swirling behind him as he stalked back down the corridor and away from them. Well, that was one problem taken care of and dispatched, at least. CZ7, you may follow, Brea said, gesturing the droid forward. Then she entered her apartment in earnest, breathing deeply as she stepped through first the antechamber, lush with plants and flowers, then the greeting salon, where her attendant Felina remained bent over her practice, and then through a short, curved corridor that led to their private balcony. Mountain air. There was simply nothing like it for the nerves. Brea closed her eyes against the setting sun. Pink tufts of clouds stretched across the sky, joined by a cascading sunset of orange and deep dark blue. The melting snow off the Juran mountains shimmered, a promise of warmer months to come. Great migrating groups of Thrantas. In case you're curious, Thrantas are like manta rays, but they fly through the air instead of swimming. They're really cute.
Both Jedi and Sith have ridden those in Star Wars The Old Republic.
Oh yeah, they make for very convenient mounts. Very cool looking ones, too. She smiled and fought the unease in her heart, enjoying as always the sight of those beautiful beasts, gray wings flapping, beating the air as their mournful cries filled the valley. Behind her daughter's tutor droid clacked to a stop, and she could hear the soft air as the droid shifted from foot to foot, waiting. Your Majesty, the droid began in his clear, automated voice, I regret to inform you that I have discovered a great discrepancy in your daughter's diplomatic records. Ordinarily, this would be simple enough to correct, but with the princess already departed, the error could affect her mission. Ah, yes, her mission. Nobody in the palace, of course, save a few key spies and officials. Is there something you want to say?
No, I haven't clicked this yet.
Okay. Just had to be sure. Spies and officials knew exactly where Leia had gone or why. It was crucial to keep the true reason for her trip a secret. Brea nodded, watching a little iridescent beetle make its way across the balcony banister. It pushed along a tiny tuft of balled-up grass, material for some growing nest. What is the discrepancy? CZ70B shuffled forward, joining her at the banister. If it was possible for a prodigal droid to look nervous, this one accomplished it nearly constantly. Its glowing mechanical eyes darted from side to side, then up and down, and its answer came after a long hesitation. She could all but hear the circuits firing rapidly in the thing's head. According to our diplomatic profile, Princess Leia speaks both Huttese and Shiriwok fluently. Regretfully, and as your Majesty is keenly aware, the princess is merely proficient in Shiriwok. That is naturally a failure of mine and not the princess, but I worry that such an error might cause her embarrassment. Oh, it is too humiliating. Brea allowed herself a smile and turned, putting a motherly hand on the droid's shoulder. It's hardly your fault that Leia did not apply herself more rigorously. I wouldn't worry. I'm struggling to imagine an area in which fluent Shiriwok would benefit her. Okay, of course, the dramatic irony joke here is that Leia... Shiriwok is the language Wookiees speak, in case you couldn't tell from the name. So, it would be convenient if Leia knew Leia was fluent in it, because, Chewbacca. But, it's weird that Brea thinks that there isn't a scenario in which Leia would need it, given, Wookiees are pretty common throughout the galaxy, if only because writers really like Wookiee characters. So, feels like the odds of Leia bumping into at least one are pretty good. Hey, do you think there were still any Wookiee slaves left on the Death Star when, boom?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, though if they weren't, they were probably all executed after construction. Poor furballs. The droid's eyes flickered brighter as if in shock. On this particular mission, of course, the Queen quickly added. Another case where I should have read ahead. And that one works better for that particular joke because, this is the mission where Leia meets Chewie and all. And I'm ruining the joke by explaining it, of course. Nodding, CZ-70B glanced down at its hands. That is perhaps true, Your Majesty, and relieved to hear, but more alarming still is my discovery that, and here the droid leaned forward, whispering, I hesitate to even make this accusation, but the princess altered the record herself. From behind them came a soft chuckle. That does sound like our daughter. Both Bray and the droid startled in surprise, but it was the queen who gasped and let her royal demeanor slip for a moment.
You know what else sounds like Leia? Running off into the woods when she's supposed to be giving big speeches, irritating other relatives, escaping from bedtime when her babysitter is trying to constantly put her to bed so much that her babysitter has to use the Force to get her to settle down.
Wait, what babysitter was that?
Ferris Olin, actually.
Wait, that actually happens?
Yeah. Bail trusted Ferris to watch over Leia. That was after Ferris infiltrated the Empire.
Wow, I really need to read the Last of the Jedi book series sometimes.
It's not in Last of the Jedi, it's in the books after Last of the Jedi, when Ferris is old, fat, and balding.
Rebel Force?
Yeah.
Ah, man. Poor guy. I bet he used to be really handsome. Yeah, well, he can go back to being handsome in the afterlife with his boyfriends. Yeah, good old Rowan Lands. Those two should have gotten married when they had the chance. They'd make such cute husbands. And yeah, I'm being super shallow and superficial again. That's me. And speaking of handsome, her husband had returned worn, perhaps, but as handsome as ever in a well-worn brown cape. Took the words right out of my mouth. She rushed to him, hurling herself gratefully into his open arms. Okay, so in case anyone's curious, because my mom told me we should point out where these characters show up, you might recognize this guy from Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Bail Prestor Organa, played by Jimmy Smits, an actor whose name I'm sure only Dad will recognize. She rushed to him, hurling herself gratefully into his open arms. The mountain air of her home was a balm, certainly, but the embrace of her beloved was bliss itself. The war, the rebellion, their daughter's absence, all fled from her mind for one single moment. So long, she whispered, pulling back from him and touching his cheek. So long. And here again, Bale replied, craning down from his height to kiss her. CZ? He said absently, never taking his eyes off Brea's face. Go now and fix the record, and know that we are all grateful for it, or your particular brand of diligence. The droid teetered by them, regarding them with wide, bright eyes as it went. I only hope my correction does not come too late. It is dreadfully easy to insult a Wookiee. That actually makes a lot of sense. But Visaya should have told me, Brea's mind reeled. You must have just crossed paths with her and that damn Alderaan. I told him to alert me at once. Bale held her at arm's length as the droid departed, but the smile he gave didn't reach his eyes. Something was deeply wrong. She noticed new lines at his eyes and longer swipes of gray at his temples, and her heart twisted at the thought of all the dangers he had survived to return to that very balcony. She held him tightly again and then allowed him to lead her to the railing, their hands entwined on the cool marble. A second heard of Thrantis soared overhead, their cries echoing off the perimeter of the valley and the heights of the palace. What do you think they sound like? Whales? I'm betting whales.
Probably.
Don't be cross with either of them, Hart. I told them I wanted the surprise to be mine. Stars, but I missed you in this place, he whispered, tilting his head up toward the sky. Brea wanted desperately to allow herself more time to feel relieved, but her grip on his hand tightened. Scarif. The rumor's true. They couldn't possibly be true. Her husband glanced away from her as he lowered his chin inside. I'm surprised they're not talking. Never mind. As he lowered his chin inside, he seemed to turn paler, a distant, haunted look coming into his eyes. You must not think of that now, he assured her. Their eyes met, and he forced half of a smile. I had so hoped to make this reunion a happier one, but the news I have... He trailed off, and for a moment he looked as if he might be sick. The Senate has been disbanded, she said. We heard days ago, Bale. It's monstrous. I knew the Emperor was bold, but I expected at least a measure of subtlety. The Senate, Bale shook his head, his grip on her tightening. It's not what I must tell you. I thought I knew what I would say, and it's only right that I'm the one to bear the news. But now that it comes to it, Brea was silent, terrified that if she said another word, he would only falter again. On the railing, she watched the little beetle succumb to a sudden wind, toppling over, all of his hard work lost and scattered. Ooh, symbolism. Bale took in a deep breath, and she watched him grow steadier, but still sickly pale. They had known each other for so long, survived so much, but in all their private mythology, never had she seen him look this way. Her husband, a man of unshakable courage and faith, now shaken to his core. The Tantive is lost, he whispered, destroyed. For a moment, Brea couldn't hear a single thing. Panic. She knew the feeling well, had known it when news of the Senate's dissolution came. This was something else. This wasn't just panic. It was a perfect hollow place carving itself out in her chest. By the way, the Tantive wasn't destroyed. It shows up later in Rise of Skywalker, but obviously the author didn't know that at the time, and the closest we came to knowing its fate is in Force Unleashed Ultimate Sith Edition, where it's just dumped on Tatooine. But obviously that was never intended to be canon, alternate universe and all. It was a perfect hollow place carving itself out in her chest. A high whine in her head made her deaf to anything but the blood pounding in her ears. She blinked, looking through the face of her husband, through the railing, through the mountains. Then her eyes finally fixed on that little beetle rolling his way across the banister. Bale had fallen to his knees. What little of his strength remained had only lasted until he could deliver that message. It falls to you now. That void in her chest had to be filled with something, or she would collapse inward, a helpless pulsar. No, I'm actually learning about pulsars in astronomy. Can't recall the exact definition. I need to reread the textbook. Purpose could fill the void, for now at least. Brea folded her hands together, clasping them tighter and tighter, as if that single point of pressure could somehow keep her upright and together. We must know more than that. Send another scouting party at once. Escape pods could have been jettisoned. Our daughter is not so easily killed. She will have made every attempt to survive. We need a chart of all planets near that asteroid field. That's where we will begin looking for survivors. And who reported this? Can they be trusted? She demanded, hearing her voice rise until she could control it again. I will not accept any report until I have seen the wreckage with my own eyes. Nice. She nearly demanded to know what exactly the Senate was doing about it, but remembered that they were alone in this, lost in an unfamiliar wilderness. Nodding, Bale reached for her, and with shaking hands she helped him from the grounds. I've asked for all that and more, he assured her. We may no longer have the Senate, but we are not without allies. Besides, there was a squadron looking, but we are at war now. You know I would use every possible resource, but our personal loss must be balanced against the needs of the rebellion. The tears were coming unbidden, and Brea was powerless against them. Our personal loss. She leaned into her husband, shrugging deep into his embrace, hiding the twitch in her chin that signaled her moment of steely political resolve was crumbling. Not lost, she said. Not yet. I won't give up. But, Bale, we should never have agreed to this. To let her go? He rested his chin heavily on her head, and Brea felt suddenly ancient and afraid, frail, battered on all sides by a war she could not stop, and evil she could not understand. This war is just beginning, and we must make what preparations we can here. Even if we do nothing but look for her, even if we do nothing but hope, the war is here, he said softly. It will be fought by Leia when we find her. We could try to keep her hidden and safe here on Alderaan when she's recovered, but we both know she would find a way to leave. Yes, I know. No. She pulled away, scrubbing her eyes with both hands. We should be out there looking too. Captain Alderaan can repair transport for us. We should race him. I'm sorry, he said. You know as well as I do that it's simply too dangerous. The Tantive can be taken, then so can we. Okay, another possible what if. We should start a drinking game for these two. Bale and Brea decide to leave Alderaan, and they don't die in its destruction.
Yeah.
That would make for such an interesting story, the way it would affect the timeline. Brea shook her head and hugged herself, rubbing warmth into already warm arms. Her anger subsided into sadness, and she returned to her husband, letting him fold her into a tight embrace as the last comforting touch of the sun fell on their faces. Of course that's true. But I can't do nothing, love. I refuse to do nothing. She pulled a small hollow device from the pockets in her voluminous skirts finding that even that simple task required full focus. Even standing and breathing felt like unfairly cruel task, but she steeled herself, prepared to be a queen for a moment longer, and a mother the moment the call went through. The blue image of Captain Alderaan flickered to life on the hull as he accepted the transmission. Perhaps we must indeed stay here, Brea said quietly, but we have able pilots and agents, and they will search where we cannot. And she just sent them to, I guess, survive completely by accident. So, one last good deed before, boom. Knowing that there would be no sleep did not make its absence any easier. A constant tremor began in her hands. One Brea felt echoed in her brain. There was no word of her daughter yet, not in the direction of life or death, and the possibility that they would never really discover Leia's fate was becoming likelier by the day. That possibility hung over her like a blind spot, and at certain moments, exhausted to the point of delusion, she swore an actual black void was beginning to obscure her vision permanently. Every blip on every communication device sent her into another paroxysm of expectant fear. She knew nobody would Bale see it, or at the least, she did her best to hide the weariness darkening under her eyes and the shaking of her hands. 2 days. 2 days had passed since her husband's return, and it felt like a lifetime, the lack of sleep blurring the hours together, until she could no more rest than divine the hour or day. The long, vaulted chamber at the north end of the palace had once hosted dignitaries, and had been the place of sober, serious political discussion, but now it had become the hub of information while their best-trained agents searched quietly for Leia. Brea spent way too much time there. She ate there when she could stomach it, and she watched Bale from across the vastness of the meeting table, their eyes ricocheting off each other. There's any lingering glance, and Brea would feel herself hurtling toward tears. There would be no tears in front of their generals. She saw a page cross from the high arched door to the table and stand at Bale's elbow.
Their whispered exchange was lost over the constant chatter of the men and women around them in the steady stream of incoming and outgoing hall calls. But Brea observed closely every new piece of information, bringing a surge of hope. Leads, most of them empty, began to circle endlessly back to the same conclusion. The Tantive had been annihilated, and with it, every soul on board. Bale shook his head, and she noticed the same telling tremor in his hands as he pinched the edge of his nose in frustration. Someone must know something. Do you hear me? Go back, he said, his voice rising in irritation. Go back and check again, and then check once more. The page swept the blue cap off his head and bowed his way out of the hall, stricken, his sweet young face turning bright crimson. Brea joined her husband, finding his hand under the table and taking it. He did not look at her, but he leaned almost imperceptibly into her shoulder. They are worried too, Bale. Don't forget that. I shouldn't have snapped at him. She had only tired smiles left in her, so she gave him one. He will forgive you. Oh, your majesties! WA2V wheeled into the chaos of the room, deftly weaving through the concerned crowd to where Bale and Brea stood. You know, I just realized WA2V is probably based off of the droid waitress from Attack of the Clones. Her slender arms were laden with a gown one Brea recognized at once as her own. It had been changed slightly, the length taken up from Leia's petite size. A glittering spray of gems added to the hem. The droid stopped just short of them, and Brea had to put up a hand to keep the dress from tumbling out of 2V's grasp. Her fingers brushed the familiar silk, and a new wave of grief crested. You were right. It was a much better idea to freshen up one of your old gowns, the droid said, fussing with the sleeves of the dress. This one is just so special, and it would be a shame to leave it in storage. It will suit the princess just perfectly. This is not the time, Bale interrupted. Turning toward the attendant. There are other considerations worthy of our attention. But the droid continued to look to Brea, holding out the empty gown. The queen forced herself to put her hand on the rich fabric, numbing herself to the fresh paint. It's lovely, she assured the attendant. When Leia returns, she will be very pleased. Note the when, not the if. So sad. 2V wheeled back and forth, fidgeting, then replied with a chirp, I think so, Majesty, and she will be home soon to see it. Ooh. Alright, next time we will cover the last moments on Alderaan before its destruction. Brace yourselves, it's going to be a real tearjerker. Alright, Sam, any last notes to add?
No.
Okay. Well, we will see you all hopefully tomorrow. If not, probably on Friday. And if not, then definitely next week.